This day, I'm experiencing dry cry, going through great sorrow for you, God's people, but yet there are no tears falling from these eyes. It's called dry cry. Beloved, I'm going to make a statement. Please do not take it the wrong way. And that is, if you allow the tyrants to enslave you, it's nobody's fault but yours. We have our Bibles. We have the writings from the Spirit of prophecy. The current events clearly tells us that we're living in a time of crisis and things are going to get worse. Again, I say, if you allow the tyrants, the scoundrels to enslave you and you are lost, it's nobody's fault but yours. You have been warned, and today you're going to be warned again. Over and over again, I implore you, implement the 5 keys of survival. That's the only way we are going to endure the present crisis, the coming crises, the mark of the beast, the new world order, and to be ready for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And remember, all of God's biddings are his enablings. There is hope, but we don't have much time. Right now, I'm going to be addressing this breaking news. The global health laws have been signed, but signed in secrecy, signed in secret via the proverbial back door. What is at stake? Your liberties. What is at stake? Your salvation. Please, I beg you, wake up. I beg you, remain alert, vigilant, and get others ready before it is too late. Greetings, salutations to Safe to Serve International and first-time viewers. Welcome to this midday power surge, your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez. On May 29, 2024, I covered the following. And many folks were actually rejoicing, applauding, but they don't know the powers of darkness. Headline reads, no deal. WHO fails to secure global pandemic treaty. And here is Tedros, director of WHO, actually appealing publicly that he and his cohorts failed to get the pandemic treaty signed. Here he is. And once I play these 2 clips, I'm going to share with you a contrast within days. In the first 2 clips, he looks sorrowful. If he could cry, he would cry, and he didn't have dry cry, what I'm experiencing. It's all a show. It's all a drama. It's theatrical. It's theatrics. He would have won, I wonder what award is given to Best Actor. Caesar, Mr. Czar, what is that award? Is that the Oscar? He would have won an Oscar award. I'm going to share with you his so-called solemn, sorrowful, oh, we failed, and within a day or 2, he's rejoicing. What made the difference? Watch this.
My wish is we will come out of the assembly re-energized, inspired. We will try everything, believing that anything is possible, and make this happen. Because the world still needs a pandemic treaty, and the world needs to be prepared, because many of the challenges that caused the serious impact during COVID-19 still exist. Still exist.
Clip 2.
Let's continue to try everything, and anything is possible. And as we always say, if there is a will, there is a way. So I'm still positive, to be honest, despite the outcome. That's what I am. That's what I believe. There could be hiccups. The issue is, what do we learn from it and move? This is not a failure. Even when I fail, by the way, many times, I try to learn what happened, and then move on. Failure doesn't stop us, it should not stop us. But this is not failure. You have really done a lot. You have progressed a lot. I don't call it failure.
There it is, friends. That's what happened on May 29th. Now notice what happened just a few moments ago. Here is Tedros actually stating, we have a deal. And notice what was signed. This is the International Health Regulation. It was done. And then he stated the pandemic treaty will be implemented in a very short time within the next 12 months. Look at the glee, the ecstatic expressions on his face.
I have lost my voice. But it's a small price to pay. Because tonight we have all won. And the world has won. And I offer you all my warmest congratulations and my deepest gratitude. You have made history here today in approving a strong package of amendments to the international health regulations. You have strengthened the cornerstone of international health law. In doing so, you have made the world safer.
You're right. The Bible says, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3 and verse 4 says, my brethren, don't be in darkness as others. Put on the whole armor of God. Clip 2. Watch him.
The pandemic agreement.
And here is where he'll mention the pandemic agreement, which he says will be executed in a very short time, within the next 12 months.
The pandemic agreement is not done yet, but I have no doubt it will be. You have charted a clear path forward, and you have demonstrated your clear commitment to finalizing it. The success of the IHR working group should give the IND confidence that you can get this done, and you will. The time frame that you set yourselves was extremely ambitious, and rightly so. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Rome.
And neither is international law. So even if it takes another year to finalize the pandemic agreement, and I don't believe you will need that long, you will still have achieved a lot in very short time.
Friends, I believe that phrase is not accidental. Yes, we use it colloquially. Rome was not built in a day, which means what we're trying to get accomplished will not be done today or immediately. It takes time. But remember, Rome, in the sense of popery, the papacy, is connected with Tedros. You will see that very shortly. It's all a game. And for those who have read God's word, they know the players on the chessboard. They are playing chess, while the majority of the world are playing checkers. I have my version. While they are playing chess, the majority of God's professed people are playing snake and ladder. Watch carefully. Do you know a statement in volume 7, page 141 says, it's all a drama, and the last act in the drama is the mark of the beast? Could it be that they had the so-called pandemic treaty meeting, and they realized all eyes will be focused on that? Make sense? And of course, it wasn't signed by all the nations. Could that have been a bait and switch? They wanted our guards down so that there wasn't much attention to the World Health Assembly meeting, where the legally binding amendments were passed without obstruction. Think about this. Almost every person's eye that was focused on the pandemic treaty, where are their eyes now? They have gone on to something else. While the international health regulation was now passed and signed in secret. That was a bait and switch. Watch this carefully, friends. Watch. Don't celebrate yet. We were warned, right? The WHO could still sneak the pandemic treaty through a back door, and that is what has happened. Several nations, including the US, have proposed the various resolutions. Here in America, the amendments to the IHR, the International Health Regulation. Friends, here's my point. Don't miss it. The WHO has policies to get their resolutions enacted. One of them is whatever they put in place, other nations who will sign that document must receive that document 4 months prior to the signing and the executing of that treaty. Do you know WHO was trying to ram that document down the throats of world leaders, and they did not give them 4 months leeway? Why? Here's my point. If they would violate their own policies and procedures to get nations to sign the treaty, right? Do you really believe the WHO would honor, respect the laws of various nations? If you still believe that, you're deceived, and you deserve to be a slave by these tyrants and scoundrels. Have you ever heard politicians in America say, when they bring a bill on the floor of the House or Senate, just sign the bill right now and then read the bill afterwards? Sign the bill and then you know what's in the bill. Does that sound familiar? Well, it's something worse going on at the WHO. Let me confirm what I just said, lest you think it's my opinion. Clip 1. Listen attentively. Watch.
Congratulating the Honourable Member for Devizes for his timing of this important, urgent question. Madam Deputy Speaker, repeatedly during this questioning session, the Minister has stated that we don't really know what shape the pandemic agreement or the accord or treaty is going to take. Madam Deputy Speaker, under Article 55, Paragraph 2 of the WHO, the World Health Organization's own charter, it states that all member states must have a full draft of the amendments to treaties to be voted on 4 months in advance. Given that despite the fact that the WHO are breaking their own rules, they are insisting on moving forward with the votes in Geneva on the 27th of May on the pandemic treaty and the amendments to the international health regulations. Will the Minister join me and many others in calling for a deferment of those votes until this House and others around the world have had a chance to examine these very important details?
Whoa, what a statement. Notice here, friends, and here it is. The IHR, International Health Regulation, signed, this is June 1st, 2024, on the heels of the so-called quote-unquote failed pandemic treaty being signed. This is the International Health Regulation, all nations. Watch carefully what this says. Look at the actual applause in the conference hall.
I see no objection. The resolution, including the amendments contained in document A77/A/com./14, is adopted.
Look at that. All nations. Including the US. While men are sleeping, Satan has stolen a march upon them. So now let us analyze this. What is actually the International Health Regulation Document Policy? What is it? Friends, it is a binding agreement among all nations, which includes surveilling all nations and their citizens. Watch this.
We had and still have.
Remember, what is at stake? Your freedom. What is at stake? Your salvation. Dry cry. If you allow them to enslave you, you deserve it. You were warned. Dry cry.
We had and still have is the international health regulations, which is a legally binding instrument by which states, so governments, agree to certain measures such as surveillance, risk assessment, and capacity really to deal with epidemics and possibly pandemics, and to share information.
Friends, I'm going to state something very quickly. And I'm speaking to those who profess to be Christians and those who profess to believe in God's word. If you believe that there's no puppet organization above the WHO, you are ignorant of the very Bible you claim to believe in. Let me be clear. In the Bible, Christ said in Matthew 24, a sign of the last days is going to be based on deception in a health arena. Pestilences, verse 3, verse 4, verse 7. And Christ says, study the book of Daniel in verse number 15. The first chapter of Daniel brings to view Babylon. Are you listening? Babylon. What did Babylon do among all nations? Did Babylon have an international health regulation? I'll wait for you to say yes. I'll wait on you. I'll wait on you. Was there an international health regulation? Yes, by Babylon. And anyone who did not go along with it, they were surveilled, they were prosecuted, and they were persecuted. Just read verse 8 of chapter 1 of Daniel down to verse 17. I'm not going to quote it. I'm not going to read it. If you believe the Bible, go and read it. Dry cry for you today. So who is going to be over the WHO? Think, friends. It must be modern Babylon. And who does the Bible call modern Babylon? It is the papacy. How many times have I given you scriptures and current events to confirm that? That's what you need to see. And then watch. From chapter 1 of Daniel, then we get to Daniel 2. And what did the king see in vision? Oh, climate change, calamity. Something is going to destroy Babylon. A stone is coming, calamities. And by the time you get to Daniel 3, what happened? False worship. The mark of the beast. And in Daniel 2, to combat the calamities, what happened? Let us have all nations uniting to sign a document. We are living in that time. If you are enslaved by Lord evil, you deserve it. Dry cry. This is one of my chief and star witnesses today. This is Natalie Morris and Clayton Morris from left to right, redacted. Now listen what they are going to state regarding the actual wording of the international health regulation. Listen to me attentively. These few clips were recorded and aired in 2023. So what was signed on June 1st is what was mentioned here in the document, in the video. And who to tell what other additions were done to make it more diabolical, inimical to our freedoms. Clayton and Natalie, speak to us. Clip 1.
Right. Well, get ready to live in the United Republic of the World Health Organization, because the country you think you live in will no longer have powers to govern if your country signs the World Health Organization Pandemic Preparedness Treaty. This is the document we've been discussing at length. What it does is allow the World Health Organization to have all of the power to decide when you're in a pandemic, when you are in danger of a pandemic, and how you must behave, your behaviors socially, emotionally, online, your speech. This is what they're trying to do.
Now, this is not her opinion. That is just her preface, her prelude. She's actually going to break it down by showing you the actual document. Beloved, I'm going to say something. Please listen attentively. To those of you who profess to be SDAs, don't you miss this point. Do you know in the book Great Controversy, page 588, what we're told? That spiritualism lays the foundation to the mark of the beast. Spiritualism. Do you know spiritualism is akin to sorcery? Sorcery, right? And Babylon in the Bible is using sorcery in Revelation 18:23. I'm going to pause and let that sink in. And when you take the word sorcery, the root word of sorcery is medicine, pharmakia, sorcery, health, poison. So Babylon is using spiritualism. Come on, follow it. Babylon, spiritualism, sorcery, pharmakia, medicine, poison. So who is over the WHO? It makes sense now. So what is the foundation to the mark of the beast? Spiritualism. Sorcery. That means the papacy is going to use the WHO to strip away our rights. Wake up. Too much indolence. Be temperate. Fast and pray. Set your house in order. What we're looking for is already here. And some of you think it's only one way it's coming. Babylon, sorcery, pharmakia, health, medicine, poison. So the papacy is using the WHO to strip away our rights, to bring on the mark of the beast.
What we have now is edits to the World Health Organization's articles of international health regulations. And the reason that they're doing this is they have to it's almost like they have to amend their underlying powers in order to give themselves more powers. So they revise this document, and it's worth taking a look at because you can already see how this is going to go based on these edits in the first few pages. Take a look. They're saying, that how we're defining what we're doing here, they just strike the words non-binding, meaning like we're going to give these recommendations, either standing or temporary. But before we used to say that adherence to them, by nation states was non-binding. Now we're like, not interested in that. If you're in the WHO, it's binding. Mercy. So let's just get that out of here.
So any flimsy language about this not being the law of the land has been removed. It's like now we're getting the full stamp.
Yes.
It's binding.
It's the WHO. Again, remember, this is not the pandemic preparedness document. This is the World Health Organization sort of their underlying powers now based on the extra pandemic powers. So
imagine that time. You know what? I'm going to say this before I get to that point. They're giving themselves more power. It's very simple. Once the nations sign on, which they have now signed on, they give the WHO their power. All that's next. The WHO will give that power over to the papacy. Case closed. And that's how the papacy received their power in 538 AD. She lost it in 1798. She will regain it. Let's move on. They mention that these policies will be implemented not only during the pandemic, but they can be enacted by law before a pandemic. And that's why it's called preparedness. You prepare before a pandemic. It's so satanic. Clip 3. Watch this.
Does this power only kick in when we're in a pandemic?
No.
Oh, no, it does not, according to edits to this document. It kicks in whenever they feel like we should be preparing for a pandemic. You see the word prepare there, like if we think that they cross out here public health risks, they're saying all risks with a potential to impact public health.
Potential. Here comes the paragraph. You no longer have any freedoms in your nation.
And will they respect our freedoms, right? No, they just cross that one out here in Article 3. Normally, implementation of regulations would have full respect for the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of persons. No, not interested in that. Just cross that right out.
Imagine that. And then they would tell us individual nations no longer have sovereignty. So the nation will say, it's simply a virus, a pestilence, but we don't believe it's a pandemic or it will lead to a pandemic. The WHO will step in and say, no, we will declare it a pandemic. Give us your rights. Watch this.
And what if officials in your government don't agree that there is a health emergency? They don't matter. Here is how that previously was written. Can we go to the next one? That says number 3. It says before, the WHO would have to consult with the state party in whose territory the event is occurring. They don't have to consult anymore. They can come into your country and say, you have a pandemic. And if you don't like that and your health officials are like, no, this is not a pandemic. We all have colds or whatever. We're not going to give you no, they decide when you have a pandemic. In fact, it removes altogether the idea that any given state could push back on whether or not there is a public health emergency. See this edit, number 3, totally crossed out, saying if, the director general and the state party, they don't agree on a consensus on whether there's a pandemic or a public health threat, then this is how you mitigate that. Gone. No mitigation. The WHO is just going to tell you. There's no, sorry.
Remember, that was in 2023. The document was amended, as you just saw and heard and read for yourself. It was signed June 1st. Now, watch this paragraph. In a pandemic, a pestilence, they will say it's time to roll out therapeutics. Who will dictate on what therapeutics to use? Not your government, the WHO. And who controls therapeutics? Babylon, sorcery, pharmakia in the Greek. Pharmakia, what is that? Big pharma, medicine, and poisons. Watch this.
And what about a pandemic? What do we do then? Do we agree on therapeutics, interventions, masking, vaccines? These things. Well, no, the WHO will do that, full stop. It says the WHO will carry out an assessment of all of these things. So,
And friends, they will now dictate on who can travel, when you can travel, where you can travel, and what you need in order to travel.
They want to be able to oppose and implement any travel bans. They want full vaccine and full health passports for travel. This is called the PLF, the Passenger Locator Form, and they want this to be recognized by every state that's a member of the WHO, and they'll have one central website and a QR code to read and authenticate that data. And will they save your personal data? Yes, they will. This draft says that states parties may disclose personal data where essential for the purposes of assessing and managing a public health risk. So,
friends, would they not need a police force to surveil to see what's going on? So imagine the WHO will now have to deputize an army to go into all these countries to make sure the nations are actually abiding by the policies that they signed on to.
And
Well, I just want to, I'm curious, like, what sort of military force? I mean, I'm sure the World Health Organization will need its own military now. Like, if they're going to go in to try to take, information from people's computers, they're going to try to barge down doors. Are they just going to use are they just going to use NATO to do it? Who are they going to use? They're going to have some sort of a law enforcement agency.
You see that, friends? And here comes the New World Order. In their minds, the New World Order, based on the Bible, is called the mark of the beast. Here it is.
let's say you're the UK and they say, we want to take cell phone location data from each person to make sure that they stay in their house during lockdowns. And if they don't, then X will happen. The British military will serve as an enforcement arm of the World Health Organization, or
right.
Municipal police. I'm not sure. And I've never seen that written out, and I've gone through this document several times.
They should probably
any state that
so they should probably just start their own military from the ground up. Let's build a massive new World Health Organization military. That's probably what they need to do. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, I was just gonna say any state that signs this is out of their freaking mind, because why would any state turn over power to somebody that's not regulated by any state? You know what I mean? Like any government that, like, they're basically saying in this, we can overrule all the governments on the planet. Like if like the idea of a new world order frightens you, this is it in writing.
Friends, if we're hearing that the WHO wants to overrule all national sovereignty, the question you must ask as a Bible student, a Christian, which organization does the Bible say once had control of all nations, lost it, and will regain it? And that would be the answer. That's Revelation 13. Look at verse 6, verse 7. Power over all nations. But she lost it in verse 10 in the year 1798. And the Bible says in verse 3 and verse 4, she will regain that lost dominion. Why we can't see this? Dry cry. No wonder Christ wept.
Yes.
They're trying to do.
But this, what I'm showing you tonight, is not something they are taking signatures on. This is the underlying power that they are giving themselves. And then the next part is opt-in. So the pandemic treaty is opt-in. This is not really. The World Health Organization is basically changing their articles of operation based on doing that next.
In other words, the pandemic treaty is opt-in for all nations. Listen attentively. When they opt in, that's one set of documents. But at the foundation, the WHO can override what's in the document. For example, do you know you and I can sign a document, but I have bylaws by which I am governed? Make sense? So you signed document A, but document B makes me a tyrant. So once you unite with me, document B supersedes your sovereignty, period. So when the WHO leader Tedros say, people are saying the pandemic treaty will take away your sovereignty, in actuality, he's speaking half-truth. But when they opt in and sign the pandemic treaty, now the international health regulation supersedes the pandemic treaty. Devilish. At the end of that meeting, the IHR, and they all signed, listen to what Tedros said, which actually tell us what is the agenda of both the pandemic treaty and the IHR. He says it's time to be aggressive to fight against anti-vaxxers. Watch this.
More than 14 million children in 2022 did not receive a single dose of vaccine. Working together with partners like Gavi and UNICEF, we aim to halve that number by 2030. But you know the serious challenge that's posed by anti-vaxxers. And I think we need to strategize to really push back, because vaccines work, vaccines affect adults, and we have science, evidence on our side. I think it's time to be more aggressive in pushing back on anti-vaxxers. I think they use COVID as an opportunity, and all the havoc they're creating.
So how are they going to do this? Where will they do it? What will they say against those whom they call anti-vaxxers? After all the new media releases about the inoculations, this man stood up after that, June 1st, and made that statement. Secondly, do you know during March 11, 2020 and May 11, 2023, they did not need a pandemic treaty to strip away our rights? So what is the purpose of the pandemic treaty? What is the purpose of the international health regulation? It's worse than many of us think. We might say, well, it's making the draconian policies official. That's true, but it's worse than that. Look at Tedros and the beast power, Babylon. Do you see it, friends? And what do they agree on? Last sentence, they agree on how to mitigate and how to deal with the pandemic. A picture tells and says 1,000 words. Look at that right there. Eye to eye. They're in bed. Strange bedfellows. There it is again. And that's how we confirm what's happening in the last days here. If you allow them to enslave you, it's nobody's fault but yours. You were warned. Do you know it was during secret? It was at the time of night when the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes captured Christ and actually tried, prosecuted Christ in secrecy. The back door. What's happening before our very eyes? Here is Tedros. He says, climate change is also a health crisis. And who is on the forefront, publicly, globally, to combat climate change? The Pope of Rome. And who is on the health side? Tedros. They're all connected. Can you see it? Tedros.
The climate crisis.
By the way, that's June 1st, 2024.
The climate crisis is a health crisis. Climate-related humanitarian emergencies are increasing in scale, frequency, and intensity.
What? The calamities, he said, are going to be more frequent and more intense? Are those not the words from the book Great Controversy? How could you profess atheists say you don't believe in the Bible, yet what is written here is being fulfilled? And you profess Christians, how could you say you don't believe in the words in the book Great Controversy when what is written is being fulfilled? And the way how we know inspired writings, what has been prophesied must come to pass, and the author must lead you into true worship. Here's the Pope saying the very same thing. The pandemic is linked to the climate crisis. Two men, leaders, saying the very same thing. And Great Controversy, page 589 says, the calamities, the pestilences will become more frequent and more disastrous. And then will come the mark of the beast. How close are we to the end? Here is Tedros one more time. Listen attentively.
I also welcome the resolution on climate change and health that member states have approved.
What will be that last resolution? The apex revolution is going to be worship on Sunday. Turn the nation back to God so God can bless America. No more pestilences, no more economic crises, no more calamity. God will bless America. That's what the Pope says. Worship on Sunday. Rest on Sunday. How close are we to the end? The very ones who claim they want to care for us will bring the pestilences and calamities. Tedros says, listen, this will be done in the next 12 months, in a short time. And the man said, all nations will unite. Is that not a fulfillment of Daniel chapter 2?
And although the pandemic agreement has not yet been finalized, the Hills Assembly has charted the way forward. It has agreed to extend the mandate of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body to finalize negotiations on the pandemic agreement as soon as possible, and by next year's World Health Assembly at the latest. The success of the IHR amendments demonstrates that in our divided and divisive world, countries can still come together to find common cause and common ground.
In this divided world, countries can still come together. Dry cry. How much more can I take this? What more can I say? The Daniel 2 evangelist, Ryan. The nations will come together. Daniel chapter 2, it's right there, friends. They are divided, but they will attempt to mingle. And the mingling represents the signing of treaties, the signing of pledges. And that was in the time of ancient Babylon. We're seeing it now with modern Babylon. I close. If you allow these tyrants, Lord, evil to enslave you, you deserve what's coming. You have been warned over and over again. Implement those 5 keys of survival. Christ says in Luke 8, that which has been done in secret will be made public. Nothing hid that shall not be made known. Please, friends, please implement those 5 keys of survival. Don't be caught off guard. While men are sleeping, Satan has stolen a march upon us. By God's grace, I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern for Midday Power Surge. If you were blessed, give this video a thumbs up. Edified, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe and share this with other people. I thank you in advance. Let's be found faithful. Amen. Let's be about God's business in these last days. The Lord is soon to come. Christ is weeping for our salvation. Get ready, remain ready. And today I have dry cry for your salvation. The Lord is soon to come, and the protest